We're in something that's worse than a recession, and we've been in it since 2007, which is a depression. And people say, well, hold on, recession is 2 consecutive quarters of declining growth and rising unemployment, a couple other factors in there, but the basic definition is 2 consecutive declining quarters of growth. And so people say, well, depression sounds worse than a recession, so if recession is 2 quarters, a depression must be 10 quarters or something like that, which we don't have. We've been growing for 9 years. But that's not the definition of a depression. A depression, you can grow during a depression, but you don't grow a trend. If trend is 3 1/4, 3 1/2, let's just say 3 1/4, and you're growing at 2 1/4, which we have for the last 9 years, that gap, that 1% gap between trend growth and actual growth, that's depressed growth. And the gap is a wedge. As this growth goes here and trend is here, that wedge gets bigger. We've left over $5 trillion, and that was on the table. And if the economy had grown at trend since 2009, the country would be $5 trillion richer than it is today. So that below trend growth is depressed growth, and that's the definition of a depression: a sustained period of below trend growth with no tendency either to get back to trend or to fall apart completely.
The effect of the Great Depression, which took place, of course, in the 1930s, lasted until the 1960s, even later. It was 30 years before that mentality really wore off. And in my view, what we're going through right now will have a similar impact, which is why we will not have a V-shaped recovery. Have to be, yes, straight down, absolutely. And also bear in mind, in the Great Depression, unemployment went to 25%, but it took 3 years. This happened in 3 weeks. I mean, there has never been anything like this in U.S. history, ever. The aggregate statistics will be comparable to the Great Depression or worse, but the time frame is greatly compressed. It's a shock. People have barely internalized this. I mean, you can look at the headlines and say, oh, stocks are up, stocks are down, whatever. But this, show me anyone who doesn't know someone who's been laid off, hours cut back, run a proprietor where no one's in the store, et cetera. So I know lots of people, and I'm sure you do as well. I mean, everyone's affected by this, if not worse. Pray for the people with the virus or people who are in critical care. So, let's just say 2 months from now. I'm making this up because I don't know if it'll be 2 months from now, but let's just say 2 months from now, President Trump comes out, all clear. We got this thing under control. It's contained. We got the testing kits. We got plenty of medical. So let's get back to work. Who says people are going to run right out and go to the movies or go to a concert or join a parade or go to a restaurant? Of course, some will. It'll trickle back slowly. But this could affect people's behavior and consumption for years, if not longer. Number one. Number two, in terms of the V, again, I'm sure you remember in 2009, 2010, what were we hearing about on CNBC? It was, green shoots. Remember green shoots? It was the sign that the economy was coming back. There were no green shoots. We had 11 years of 2.2% growth. Average annual growth of all recovery since 1980 was 3.2%. We grew, but we were running on a new track that was a full percentage point lower than the long-term average growth. If 1% doesn't sound like a lot, I suggest the following. Take 1% times the $22 trillion economy, compounded over 10 years, and see how much wealth was lost. The answer is over $4 trillion. That's how much money we left on the table. The concern now is that, the economy will be open for business, but we might be on a new growth path, even lower, maybe, 1.7, 1.8%. Again, getting nowhere near the former trend. Meanwhile, we're piling on $5 to $10 trillion of debt and spending. And by the way, this is not stimulus. It is spending. It is monetary ease. They're printing the money and they're pushing it out the door. No question about it. This is not stimulus. So the money the government's putting out the door, will it, keep some lights on? Yes. Will it preserve some jobs? Yes. But that's not stimulus. And it won't be stimulus because the debt is too high. And I've said for years, look at what the Fed has done. They guaranteed commercial paper. They guaranteed corporate bonds. They guaranteed municipal bonds. They guaranteed money market funds. They guaranteed the primary dealers. They're pumping money out the door. Who guarantees the Fed? And that question kind of hangs out there. Well, we just kind of found out the Treasury is recapitalizing the Federal Reserve with $450 billion. But of course, the Fed is a bank, or at least it acts like one. they're going to leverage that 10 to 1. That means they can print $4.5 trillion, okay, using the $4.5 trillion using the $450 billion in new capital. Their balance sheet is already at $5 trillion today. That's higher than it was at the height of QE3 in 2014. So you're starting with a $5 trillion base, throw $4.5 trillion on top of that, because that's how much they can lend with this new capital. You're approaching $10 trillion on the Fed balance sheet, which is almost 50% of GDP. I mean, these numbers are not only off the charts, they've never been seen or heard of or even conceived, but that's what we're doing.